Hey there, my wild and freed friends. Welcome back to another episode of She's Wild and Freed. I am so excited to introduce to you my guest today. Her name is Tammy Cox, and she's a highly skilled trauma healing specialist who helps women rebuild their lives and relationships through profound emotional healing. With a core emphasis on inner child work, she guides her clients in identifying and healing the unresolved traumas that often lie at the heart of relationship challenges, enabling them to reconnect with their authentic selves and create deeper emotional intimacy with others. Tammy's coaching approach is informed by her own transformational journey. Having faced the emotional scars of childhood wounds and their ripple effects in her adult relationships, Tammy understands firsthand the power of healing from within. She has turned her personal struggles into a source of strength and now empowers women to take control of their healing, helping them create fulfilling, loving relationships and live with greater purpose. Oh my goodness, I thoroughly enjoyed this conversation and I can't wait for you all to listen to it. I recommend you bookmark this episode, of course, when needed, back up 30, 15, whatever's on your listening app, because there are so many juicy nuggets in this conversation. Tammy uses visuals, which we'll talk about at the end as well, but just really profound conversation for me, and I hope it is for you as well. Before we start the conversation, I would like to just give a trigger warning here. Tammy jumps right into some of her childhood trauma, but she also talks about other difficult things like abuse, rape, and other things that many of us or many of you maybe have experienced or maybe not. But I wanted you to know ahead of time, we will be talking about some difficult subjects in this episode. Here she is, Tammy Cox. Hey y'all, my name's Jen. I'm a health and life coach on a mission to empower women, and this season I call the messy middle. We believe it's never too late to dream your wildest dreams and to build lives freed from the shoulds and have-tos. Here, we talk to ourselves like we do our girlfriends and our sisters and daughters. I will share stories and resources with lots of encouragement and a little bit of tough love to drive you toward action. In this podcast, we talk about everything: career, relationships, motherhood, and health. So grab your sneakers and let's go, because she's wild and freed. Welcome, Tammy, to She's Wild and Freed podcast. I am so happy to have you with us today.
I'm so excited. I think this conversation is going to be really fun. So thank you for having me.
Yes, you are welcome. Well, thank you. So let's start off so our listeners can learn a little bit more about you. So tell us about you. You can tell us your story, go back to childhood, however you'd like to do it, but we'd love to learn more about you.
Yeah, it definitely does start in childhood. Yeah, I grew up with an interesting childhood. A very controlled environment, very religious, very sheltered, you could say, with a lot of violence. You know, I came from a very violent family. There was like physical fighting that was just part of my daily life with my siblings. But then there was abuse. And when I say abuse, I want to be specific that it was the type of abuse that a lot of parents don't know is abusive, which is discipline. You know, in the name of discipline, you can get away with a lot. And so my father was his form of discipline was pretty violent. You know, he had a pretty big paddle, he called it, that he spanked us with. And so the way I interpreted this in my young mind was like, unless I conform 100%, do what you say, be who you want me to be, I'm going to have a physical, I'm going to be physically violated. And so very sheltered, like I said, very strict religious. And I also had a sister, an older sister who was developmentally delayed, who was also very violent. I mean, we all were, but she was unpredictable. So my father was scary to me, and she was also very scary to me. And then when I was 11 years old, was when my parents sat, my sibling, and I'm one of three from both my parents. And our parents sat us down and said, yeah, your dad is sick and he's dying of AIDS.
Oh my goodness.
And so, yeah, it was quite shocking. At 11 years old, like I said, I was super sheltered, so I didn't really understand things about sex or sexually transmitted diseases. And this was when I found out a bit about my dad's history. I also grew up in a family full of secrets, right? So this big secret was that my dad had AIDS. And the truth is that my mom had found out when she was pregnant with my brother, my younger brother. And so back then in the 80s, you didn't find those things out till way later. So the chances of my dad having it before any of us were conceived is very high. And so kind of a miracle out of all of it is that we all lived except for my dad. He ended up passing a month later. And that's where things, you'd think they'd get better, but they actually didn't. They got worse because I felt relief that he had died because he scared me so much. But I also missed him. And then I also had this guilt about feeling relieved that he died. And so I lived with a lot of anger, self-hatred, and I spent my teenage years just pretty low, you know, doing anything to numb out, doing anything to relieve this tremendous pain that I had. And so I sort of kind of floated by for some years, but when I became a mom at the age 26 was when all my triggers started sounding off. That was really the time where all of my pain sort of bubbled to the surface. I could no longer hide it. I could no longer run from it or numb myself out from it. It just all came to the surface. And it was that moment where I realized that if I didn't heal myself, that I was going to either take myself out of the game or find some way to make this better. And so that kind of led me on my healing journey, but I'll let you take that wherever you want to.
Yeah, no, thank you for sharing and being so open. That is a really rough upbringing, and definitely I know you've gone through a lot to be where you are today. So I look forward for us talking about that a little more. So you said, you started your healing journey around 26 when you had your first child. So tell us a little more about that, where you started or how you came to be there.
I say 26, but really the first time I made the decision that I was going to better myself was 19, because that's when I was at a really low point. And I was like, so from there I started things like therapy, talk therapy, books, poured myself into religion because of course that was the pattern. So I poured myself into religion. We're talking, I tried everything. Like I did the retreats and the books and the prayers and the you name it. And nothing really helped long term. Nothing really fixed the problem. It'd get better for a little bit and things would go back to normal. So 26, I mean, at 26, I had done some work, but didn't get very far, clearly. But it was just the moment where I realized that it was like that desperation of knowing I have to fix this, because I'm not passing all this shit onto my baby. So from there is when I sort of put my foot down and said, no, I'm finding a path. And so I dabbled in lots of things for many years that like I said, would sort of seem to help. But let's see. I stumbled upon the trauma work. Started on the trauma work probably about 5 years ago. And that's where I started to really see changes within myself. Because once I started going back and neutralizing my trauma and learning about how I came to be the person that I am, and then learning about things about, psychology, like subconscious mind versus your subconscious mind, and how we come to be who we are. When I started learning these things, everything started to make sense for me. And I started to go in and change my identity little by little. And so once I shifted and changed myself and learned the formula to do so, then I was like, this is what I get to bring to the world. Like, this is what lights me up. And then all of a sudden I want to help others do this thing that I've done. So yeah, I feel like that's always the case. And then, once you start healing yourself, you realize why you chose the path you did. And it was to wake up and heal yourself so that you could do it for others. So that's where I found myself and how I got here.
That's beautiful. I love that you shared it that way. And I think many people listening can relate to trying a lot of stuff, like I can relate to the religious background and certainly feeling like that's the way and that's how you heal. Sometimes that's masking all the stuff instead of actually addressing it. So, but that certainly can work for some people. And then books, yes, people will, try all the self-help books. So I really appreciate you sharing that, because one way is it's not a one size fits all, and then what you came upon, now is this trauma informed work. And it's so interesting because I was just looking, and there's breath work going on in my community this weekend, and she's a trauma informed breath worker. And I was like, yes, let's go. But no, this is wonderful. I appreciate it. So you do relationship coaching. So I'm curious how, I know you're saying that you got into, wanting to share this with the world. How is that related to what you do now? And is it related? I guess share that with us.
Oh yeah, it's very related. Everything comes down to the relationship with yourself. Right. And so for many years, my husband and I, we had a very toxic relationship because I was toxic. We both had unhealed trauma wounds, but when I healed me is when I healed our marriage. So what I learned was, if you want to shift anything out here pictured in your reality, you got to first shift within, right? As within, so without. So what I focus now is with women that have relationship trouble. So some of them are looking for love and haven't been able to find healthy love. And some of them are like I was, barely holding on to a marriage that isn't working. And what I find is it's the same work, no matter who you're working with. If you want to attract something different from your environment, you have to shift the beliefs within you, because everything goes back to the beliefs that you hold in your subconscious mind. So my beliefs about men, because I had a violent dad, was men hurt me, men aren't safe. So what kind of men do you think I attracted into my life before I really started working on my belief system? Right. Yes. And so it's as easy as that. And a lot of people say, oh, well, I got to go get a new person for that. And I say, maybe, no shame in that. But what if I say that the goal is to heal first, because you can attract a very different person from the same person. My husband shifted because I shifted. He had to. And And that's what seems to happen with my clients when they come in and they shift. Either their husbands shift with them, not always right away, ladies. The husband shifts with them eventually, or they part ways. So one of two things happens, and she cannot be attached to what happens. She has to be okay no matter what it is, because whatever it is, you gotta raise your frequency.
Yeah.
You gotta heal yourself. And the only way you could do that is to start cutting the ties with your negative past that are anchoring you to all the crap.
Yeah. Because it just keeps coming back. Even if you think you've moved past something, if you don't really heal from that past trauma, it just, as you said, you were triggered with your first child, other things will come up, will trigger you. And it's so important we
bring all the negative past with us. If we haven't forgiven and worked through a lot of our stuff, we just pull all the negative past into the present moment, and it's all here, giving us the perception, the eyes. It's almost like I tell people, you're wearing a prescription, and the prescription you're wearing, if you picture your glasses, is all your beliefs. It's the way you see the world is all through your prescription of beliefs. So for a moment, while I'm working with you, why don't you hand me your prescription? I'm going to give you a new one. Okay. And with these beliefs, they're going to be of your choosing, not the ones that were pre-programmed in your system, in your software, but the ones of your choosing, who you choose to be and the beliefs you choose to hold.
Wow, that's like a mic drop moment. Yeah, I love that visual. I mean, obviously, I'm wearing glasses right now. But no,
I know, it's so perfect, right?
It's perfect.
Then I was like,
let me just hand that
give me
over.
your glasses. Let's push them out, girl.
Oh my gosh, that's so good. Well, trauma work is not easy, and many of us don't want to revisit, or, we think it, like I said before, we think it's gone. We think we've moved past it. And I was talking to a girlfriend the other day, and I was like, I'm navigating my own relationship thing right now. And I was like, I feel like I'm walking through this field of thorns. And once in a while, one just grabs me and rips me open, because it's so complex. And that is what you have to do, though. You have to feel some of that pain, or a lot of that pain. But I would love for you to share with our listeners more about how you go about doing that with your clients.
Well, you have to understand, okay, so for the people that are scared to go back in, it's like, I get it. No one wants to relive the crap. But the pain stays within you until it's emoted. Emotions, energy in motion. It only takes 90 seconds to feel the pain. If the pain comes up and you allowed yourself, instead of to resist it and push it down, you go, no, I'm going to feel it. And so I have my clients go and do it. I want you to thread it like a needle. I want you to go all the way through it until it is fully felt. So we're going to go through it. It only takes 90 seconds to feel the pain before it's gone, vanished. So it's like, no, you'd rather spend how many years suppressing it, living with it in your system, allowing it to bubble up. Especially for me, it's about 5 days before I start bleeding, bubbling up. That's when my pain body really speaks to me. Or you can embrace the fact that you have pain within you. You can allow yourself the compassion and love to feel it, and you can move it out of your system. And if you don't, oftentimes I'll tell you what happened. It turns into disease. It turns into more pain. It accumulates in your body like a snowball coming down the mountain. Or you can let it go and please stop judging it. That pain is a gift. That pain is a gift. That pain is telling you, hey, there's something here that we might not be serving us anymore. That's all pain is. And when you look at the pain and you see it, oftentimes I'll have my clients look at it like that little girl within them crying out for your love and attention. I want you to pick her up, scoop her up in your arms, hold her. What does she need from you? What does she need to feel? She just wants a hug. Okay, good, hold her. But why are you ignoring her? So it's like, it's the way we see pain as like, we want to avoid it. We want to dismiss it. We want to pretend like it's not there. It's like, okay, it will never not be there until it is emoted. So you can have some denial, and I get it. The healing, you're so right, Jen. The healing journey is not like the funnest, easiest thing, but I promise you the deliciousness of the freedom you feel when you start moving this pain out of your body. Like most of the time after I get done with a session, you know, my clients are like, oh my gosh, I feel so much lighter.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, you do. Because we physically moved something out of your system.
Well, and what you just said about it showing up in our bodies, like you said, disease, I think that's such a important thing to say here, because not all disease is like you're sick. You actually got a germ. It's more so you've been holding on to this weight, this emotion, this trauma from behind, you know, from your past. So,
and you got to stop seeing yourself as just a body. If you were just a body, you'd be a corpse. It's the spirit, right? It's the spirit within the body that animates the body, or else you'd be expiring. So you have to start treating yourself as a whole being and not just the meat. You are not just this meat, or else once the spirit left, like you have to see yourself in the triune nature. You are body, mind, soul. You are not split up. You are all of it. And so if you don't understand, that's what I meant when I said I started studying the human being. I started studying how we create our lives, how we actually make all this stuff out here that we can smell, taste, touch, and feel. Yeah. It's like when you start learning how we make all this stuff visible for us, then we understand how to do it on purpose. So that's all we can do it on purpose, so we can get the results that we want, instead of, you know, attracting the same cycles and patterns all of our life, just like our parents and just like their parents, and just on and on and on. We get to break the cycle. We get to be the pattern changers. And if you're watching this podcast, my guess is that you're already on your healing journey, whether you accept it or not. You may have just barely dipped your toe in the water, but you wouldn't be listening to this unless you wanted to change some things in your life. So
absolutely, 100%. Well, let's talk about, you know, someone coming to you and they're actually thinking they want to change their spouse or their partner. They're they're the problem, or they won't listen, you know, and I don't know if you work strictly with heterosexual or different couples, but yeah, when someone comes to you and they're like, yeah, I'm fine, it's the other person. What's your approach, or what's the first step?
That is almost 100% what they think. They may not say it, but almost all of them think it.
Yeah.
It's the truth. Like, we're all victims until we start on our healing journeys. And the victim says it's them. It's that. It's this circumstance. It's my parents. It's always someone else, right? But the truth is, and I let them think that in the beginning, because as we start to dig in, they'll see how they created it all. And I don't have to tell them, hey, but if they're almost halfway through their time with me and they have not recognized that they're the creator of it all, or they are constantly going back to the victim mentality, understand this: as long as you're a victim in any percentage, you're powerless. You're powerless to change your life. So you can continue to blame everyone else, but you won't be the full creator, like having all the power and ownership of your life. It is hard. I get it. The first time I said to my husband, hey, listen, I now know and understand that you are not responsible for my happiness. That is not your job. That's my job. It is not your job, children. It is not your job. It's no one else's job. My happiness is my job. Everything that I want to feel in this lifetime, that's up to me. That is my choice. But if I put that on other people, then I will never be 100% the owner of my life. So, and I do think this comes in stages, because there are times I turn into a complete victim and I want to blame my husband and my kids and everything, every single other thing in my life. There are times that happens and I let myself pout for a minute, and then I have to be like, nope, I created this. And when you do that, then you can look at it like, I take it even back to before my lifetime. I believe that I chose this lifetime, that I chose the things that I would have to go through in this lifetime in order to wake me up so I could do what I do now and be equipped for it. I have held people who are just in the darkest of places. You know, I have other friends that are coaches and, you know, they're like the cheerleader kind, like, yay. And they're looking at me like, I never want to go start dealing with people's trauma. And I'm like, I know, because I was built for this, because I can go in those dark areas at the moment that a woman, you know, was raped or beaten, and I can hold her in that space and I can allow her to feel it so that she can move on, so she doesn't have to live with that pain anymore. Not a lot of people are willing to go into the darkness on behalf of just compassion for another being. But I understand what my work is. I understand why I came here, and I own it. And that is my freaking honor. That's my honor.
It's so beautiful. And it's so empowering just hearing you talk about how you chose this. We can choose, you listening can choose your life, your happiness, your things that are going on. And yeah, I felt empowered just listening to it. So thank you for that.
Yes, Jen. We're so powerful.
That's
we
right.
need to stop giving it away. That's what we learned to do as women. We gave it away because we were told we were less than. We were told that we were not important. We were, you know, inferior. And it's like, now as the feminine is rising and we're seeing this huge shift in consciousness, the feminine needs to stand up and take her power and say, nope, it's not up to you, husband. It's not up to you, everyone.
Right.
It's up to me. I own it. And that's what I see has to happen in order for us to be, you know, all equals. You know, we're getting there. We've never been so close to, no matter what age, sex, race, sexuality, we're getting more to seeing everyone as equals. And I think that's a beautiful thing. And when everyone is equals, we will have this healthy, beautiful relationship with each other, honoring each person for who they are and what they bring to this world, you know?
Yeah. Well, it sounds like what you're saying, but correct me if I'm wrong. It's about the balance. I mean, there is the masculine and the feminine, and, you know, we all have those parts within us, but, you know, as you said, and I certainly was brought up this way, that I was taught to be small or quiet and take care of everyone else's needs. So I think a lot of people listening would relate to that. But that makes me think about, and I wonder if some of your clients come with this too, where they're afraid they're going to lose friends, you know, it could be their spouse, family, you know, they're afraid of either offending or losing them, no longer having them in their lives. And how would someone navigate that?
I mean, it's a step-by-step thing.
Okay.
But as you rise, things have to change. They do. And loss is an interesting word. I just have very different feelings about the word loss, because we know that energy can neither be created nor destroyed. It just shifts and changes form, right? So it's like, we don't really die. We don't really die. There's no such thing as death. We just change forms, right? So we go into, so really we come into this lifetime, right? We're born, we have our time, we play around, we learn lots of lessons, we grow, and then we what? Pop out of our body expires. Everything is cycled, right? Everything. So it's like when we think of loss, what do we think of? Oh, this person was in my life and now they're not. Okay, yeah. But life is always changing. So I think for me, and this is on a much deeper level, I didn't know if you were really trying to go this deep, but
let's go there.
I just took it all the way deep. I was like, let's go all the way. It's like things come into form, they go out of form. Nothing ever stays exactly the same. So we must embrace the cycle of life and not judge death. Death is beautiful, because it means our time is limited, which creates this sort of like, ooh, I only have this amount of time. It makes it more exciting for us. So don't judge it. People are going to come into our life and they're going to come out. But it's like, if we're not okay with the ebbs and flows of life, of people coming in and out, and we want to hang on and say, no, this has to stay the same, you're going to be very disappointed, because I'm sorry, you do not control the forms. I mean, you do and you don't. Like, things will never stay the same. So the more we can just embrace the fact that this is a temporary experience, and our goal is just to enjoy it the best we can and to make the most of it, then you're going to let the people come and go, so to speak.
Okay. Yeah.
Right? And it's like, if you're honoring your soul's journey, and your soul is, because that which is likened to itself is drawn, meaning you attract people in your likeness. And so when you shift and change, you're going to attract differently. So you can attract differently from those same people, but there are going to be some that are so hell bent on staying where they're at, they're not going to want to come where you're going. And I've experienced this a lot, if you want to put it in the loss, where, you know, I keep raising myself up because I don't want to be who I was. And so there is no comparison to who I was 20 years ago from what stands in front of you now. No comparison. And so that's not going to attract the same kind of people. Do you know what I mean? So if I was so attached to keeping those people around, that means that I would have to make myself really small.
Right.
Because I outgrew them a long time ago. And he who has the strongest will always wins. So if you are a high supporter like you, Jen, a high supporter is, you know, someone who's very soft and loving, and they tend to make other people more important than themselves, then you have to dominate yourself and say, no, I'm going to be around people that uplift me, that bring out the best in me, that nurture me, that love me, because that's not your natural nature, right?
Right.
So it's just about choosing what you want. If you don't want to change and you want to stay small, then by all means do that. But if you're willing to grow and move up, then you are going to attract differently.
Yeah, I love that. It really made me think, as you were talking, it's like choosing joy over fear, you know, choosing love over hate and those sort of things. So yeah, if you're rising up, those folks will naturally, or those energies are naturally going to fall away or shift. And you're right. I mean, if any of us look back 20 years ago, I mean, for the most part, we're not the same person, you know, and those who are trying to grip onto the idea of who we were 20 years ago, that's when you have to really look at yourself internally, like you said, and choose what you really want. So that's wonderful. Yeah, amazing. Well, one of the things that we wanted to talk to you about is just transforming our relationships. So if someone listening right now is like, okay, I know things aren't great. It's not terrible in my relationship, but it's not great. I know there needs to be some change. You know, what's something they can do? What's something they can address within their relationship?
Well, when I work with people, I'm working with them on their relationship with themselves, because like I said, it doesn't have anything to do with the other person. We got to go within you.
Okay.
We got to look at what's holding you back. So usually when a client comes to me, we look at their patterns. Okay. What are the patterns that you have that have served you the least? So we start to dissect the patterns. Okay, then we follow the patterns back. Okay, where does this start? We go all the way back to childhood. Then we look at the event that created it all.
Okay.
And when she sees the event, when she makes the connection, she goes, that's why I'm allowing this behavior. That's why I attracted this kind of man. That's why whatever. But she sees her part in it. Because until you own, like I said, until you own your part in it, which have compassion for yourself, because it was just that tiny version of you who made a decision in a moment of trauma, who that decision she made has affected her whole life. But until she sees how she created it, she might just think things are just coming at her and she's not responsible for the things. Right. And so when I take her back to the moment, she's like, I get it. I still feel alone. And this is one I get a lot. I've been getting a lot lately. She goes, I felt alone then, and I feel alone now. I'm with my husband, but I'm still feeling alone. And then because she sees that was the moment that she had with her father in this moment, in that moment as a child, she's still replicating the emotion because the emotion still exists within her. So then what happens when we emote that emotion stuck within her? It's gone. It's felt, it's moved out. She no longer needs to repeat the pattern. So it fixes itself. When you deal with people on a belief level, you don't have to worry about the behaviors, the characteristics. They just naturally work themselves out because we went to the root. The Bible refers a lot about the seasonality of sowing a seed, watering the seed, grooming, watering, pruning, and then the fruit that's bore from that seed.
Yes.
That seed is a belief. So I believe, what Jesus is talking about is the belief that is planted as a seed form into the subconscious mind. Most of the time in those first 5 years, because that's when we're open. We don't have the upper faculties to keep it out. So boop, the belief is implanted. And then what happens? You have experiences throughout your life that water that seed. Oh, I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough. She rejected me. That friend told lies about me. And all throughout your life, all these terrible things that are happening that are watering the seed. My seed was I'm not lovable. So, that just kept going all throughout my life, sabotaged all these relationships, when all I needed to do was go down, observe the seed. Oh, this seed was planted there. I'm not good enough. Pluck out the roots and plant a new seed in its place, which is I am love. I'm created from love. The divine placed me here in this world at this time. So it's like we get to reprogram ourselves, but we do have to look at that programming and see what it is, and we can't be scared to go in there.
Well, it's like you said, too, just kind of thread that needle. Just go all the way through. You got to feel the feeling and then get on the other side. And
breath work is a great way. Breath work is a great way to, it's wonderful.
Yeah. Awesome. So do you share with your clients? So let's say they've gotten to this place where they're lighter and they've reprogrammed, or they're able to move forward without that negative, that limiting belief. Are there tools or things that they can use when they move into now talking to their partner? It may be romantic or friendship, but talking with those folks about their new paradigm, their new reality.
Yeah. So one thing I like to teach them around communication with their significant other is a few things. So the first thing, every conversation, especially the deeper ones, you must go in with absolute expectation. You have to have an expectation. You have to have a knowing of what you want to take from that conversation. So,
I like that. Yeah.
In order to, so for instance, if I'm going to my husband, I'm talking to him about a deep conversation, right? I go in there and before I go in there, I have a conversation with myself. What is my intention? My intention is to find the win-win. My intention is for me to be so happy and him to be so happy. And I believe that it is possible to have a win-win. So I'm going in there not accusing, not saying you did this, you. No.
Yeah.
I want a win-win, and I believe it's possible. So when you come to someone in communication, your expectation is everything. Your intention is everything. If your intention if you're always intentional, think about how beautiful your life would play out if you were intentional. So you go into that conversation, you're like, hey, like when I started my healing journey, I kind of told my husband, like, listen, I don't know what this means for us. I'm not attached to this continuing. I'm attached to me being happy. And what happened is obviously it upgraded everyone in my life by me choosing this, but it started with me just saying, I'm going to go get me happy and then we can play, right? But when it comes to conversations, if you go to your spouse and you say, hey, listen, I want you to be incredibly happy. I want to be incredibly happy. Let's see if we can work that out together. But what I see a lot of times is people have way too many expectations of like, they feel like one person needs to win and one person needs to lose. That doesn't work. If two people are in a relationship and they are against each other, that's not going to work. You have to see them as your teammate. That means wherever they're at, you got to see them as your teammate, and you got to say, hey, let's get on the same page. How can we get on the same page? And not saying that every time you're going to be on the same page about everything, but you're getting closer and closer and closer. My husband and I still don't fully agree on parenting, and we have a 16-year-old, 14-year-old, and 6-year-old. Like we still don't see it the exact same, but we're looking to get closer and closer to the same page. So you have to figure out what you want in your relationship. Do you want a competitor, or do you want a teammate?
Yeah.
And then if you want the teammate and you decide, no, I want a teammate, then you get to go into the conversations as a teammate would. Hey, buddy, so there's some things happening and this is going cool, but can we work on this a little bit, instead of saying, hey, this sucks, this sucks, and this sucks, and you suck. And like, it's the energy in which you're bringing into the conversation. I know, because I used to do that, right? I was a big time blamer. But once I started taking responsibility, I could go to my husband and say, hey, listen, I noticed that I have these patterns, and thank you for being like so generous with me and not pointing it out when I throw a tantrum. If you could handle it like this, when I have that reaction, if you could just, give me a hug or this or that, like you're speaking to them like your teammate versus the opponent, right? Yeah. Changes everything. So, and I understand some people are like me, and they have a toxic relationship for a long time, and to change the pattern feels like so hard. But I promise you, if you are so aware of your intentions every time you speak to that person for like a month, then what happens is you will create such a sweet energy between them, such a sweet flow where they embrace you and don't see you as the enemy because you're coming at them like this.
It's easy to see it that way. Oh my gosh.
That's what I did. I would come at my husband with these accusations all the time, like, you. And once I stopped doing that, and I came at him just with this responsibility approach of like, what's mine? I'm going to own mine. I'm not going to put anything off on you. And compassion for him, knowing that he has his own stuff.
Yeah.
He has his own not enoughness. And when I accuse him, it hurts his heart so much. Right. And he may lash out, but inside, that little boy within him is just like crying because it's taking him back to his childhood where he was reprimanded and he doesn't feel like he's enough. Like we're all sitting here in pain. So have compassion for your partner's pain. Like see the little boy or little girl within them and have compassion for that little child who's just scared.
Yeah.
I started to, in meditation, start to scoop my head. When I saw him like suffering in some way, whether it was caused by me or not, I would go back to his 4-year-old self and I'd just pick him up in my arms and hold him and calm him down and tell him everything's going to be okay. You could do that with your partner anytime you see them distressed, and you will watch. It will shift them so fast.
Yeah.
And another thing I have my clients do is they give their partner a healing bubble. So they put, when I work with my client, I always give them their own healing bubble that we work with, and then they can transfer that to other people that are in distress. And all they have to do is visualize that bubble around them, and they'll watch their partner get just instantly calm. They're like, whoa, that thing works like magic. I'm like, it works with your kids, works with a mean guy cutting you off in traffic. It works with everyone because it's energetic.
Oh my gosh. This is an unbelievable conversation. And I know that you sharing these visuals is just so powerful because we can really see it. Those of us listening can see, the threading the needle, the bubble. But that final thing you just said about going in intentionally, having a positive expectation that win-win, because we can come into these conversations in a lot of ways, playing the victim, blaming, expecting a negative interaction because that's been your pattern as, within the relationship. So planning out the conversation. I like if you practice it with yourself, you suggested, and seeing your partner as your teammate. That's all just wonderful suggestions. I love it.
Good.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. Well, is there anything that you were hoping that we would talk about we didn't touch on today, or anything else you wanted to share with the listeners?
One thing, so I'm not sure if I told you about this, Jen, in our last conversation, but I recently started a podcast, Behind the Veil, Anonymous Transformations. And what I do is I take people back through I take them through a process. So it's not this style. It's not an interview style. It's not a conversation style. It's someone who needs help and they request to be on, and we bring them on, and it's completely anonymous. In fact, there's a silhouette over their screen, and I take them through a transformation right there. And it's pretty awesome because, first of all, no one does that. Like, no one brings people into their modalities and shows exactly what they do. And I do. And then also anyone watching gets a transformation. Like, I get a transformation every time I take someone through a process, but also anyone spectating, watching, witnessing are going to have something for themselves too. And we're talking women with domestic violence stuff. We're talking all sorts of rape, molestation, all of it. And they let me walk them through a process right there on the call. So That's amazing. Anyone is interested in like a process and you'd love to do it for free, then I encourage you to get on the podcast. I don't even use their name if they don't want me to, because sometimes, we go through some deep stuff, but I love it because it is just my gift to the world, because it lights me up to do it. But then all these people that get to witness it, and possibly, like, I'd love for the world to get to the place where they have enough information to be able to heal themselves. Mm-hmm. It's like, how beautiful would the world be if we all did this inner work and healed our trauma wounds and our lineage, really.
Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful. So is that, we can share that in the show notes of how they could apply or be on the podcast? Okay.
Yeah. So I'll give you my link tree. And on there is the application to apply to be on the podcast. And also anyone who's interested in, working with me, they can schedule a discovery call as well. That's on the link tree as well. So also, I have a lot of people that reach out to me on Instagram to ask me relationship questions. So you can most certainly do that, or email me.
Excellent. Yes, we'll definitely share that link tree. I went through a lot of it as I was preparing for this talk, and you've got some great stuff out there. And I love your TikToks. So just keep doing what you're doing. I mean, your energy, and you said it is your gift, and you can feel that just even through this video podcast, that you have this gift to deliver to the world. And if we can continue to share that, I'm so happy I had the opportunity to talk with you and share with my listeners, and we'll definitely share your information so they can connect with you in different ways.
Thank you so much. I had so much fun.
Welcome. Well, I do have a final question I'm asking everyone who's coming on the podcast. So what is a regular practice that you do in your life that allows you to feel wild and freed?
Ooh, wild and free. Ooh, gosh, girl. Wild and free. I mean, do I have to narrow it down to one?
No. Share what you'd like.
A dance is probably one of my top. Dancing, singing, swimming takes me back to my childhood.
Yes.
I rollerblading. Like, I feel like a kid again when I'm on my rollerblades riding around. I mean, dancing with my kids, playing with my kids. There's so many things that, but being in nature. Walks in nature, delicious. Floating down the Salt River.
Amazing. Well, it all sounds like just moving your body and just connecting with that in source.
Yes,
I love it.
Like the flow.
Beautiful.
I could do it now.
Well, yeah, it was a pleasure. Thank you so much for sharing your gift and your story and lots of really great nuggets in this conversation. So thank you.
Thank you for having me, Jen. I think you are an amazing question asker. Like I felt like made that conversation flow so well. And I don't know. I love your energy. You're just such a sweet, compassionate, gentle being.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yes.
Wow. Just wow. So if you've been listening in to my interviews in this season 3 of the podcast, you will know that at the end, I talk about the takeaways. So I usually have a list of 8 to 12 takeaways, depending on what I got from that conversation. And as I was listening back to this interview before I posted, I was more than halfway through when I realized I had not jotted down a single takeaway. So what does that mean? Well, I was so into what Tammy was saying, just soaking it all in, listening, taking a lot of mental notes, and realized I'm going to let you all decide your takeaways this time. I will say, I think those visuals that she presented to us, the prescription that we're wearing, the healing bubble, I just love that approach that she takes. It really helps, us, you as a listener, her clients, in working through, that trauma that we've experienced. We've all experienced some sort of trauma, whether it be big T trauma or little t trauma, as it's referred to. And we bring it with us no matter what. And I think we can all relate to that in some way. And so having that healing bubble. The other thing, I guess I am telling you guys a few of my takeaways. The other thing was, when you're going to talk with your partner, a friend, your spouse, whomever, and it's going to be a difficult conversation or something that's really hard for you to talk about, setting that intention ahead of time that you want this to be a win for you and a win for the other person. I mean, that was a mic drop moment for me. I wish that I'd had some of these tools in my tool belt early on in my journey through marriage and with relationships, but I'm so happy to have experienced it now and so happy to have met Tammy and to be able to share her wisdom and, again, her truth bombs she was dropping. So thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you next time. Thank you so much for spending time with me. I hope you feel free to take action toward building the life of your dreams. If something in this episode resonated with you, I would so appreciate it if you would text it to a girlfriend so she can hear the message as well. Until next time, stay wild.